Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the Let's Build for the Sorceress. Now, this is the final episode in this series. I've done all the other ones from the Amazon till now, till the Sorceress. And I am super excited. First off, because then I don't have to create an hour and a half long video every week. Anyway, but also because the Sorceress is a ton of fun to play. It is probably one of my favorite classes in Diablo 2 to play next to the Necromancer, next to the Druid. But the Lightning Sorceress is just so much fun. Chain Lightning is one of my favorite abilities until you run into Act 3 and where you get a bunch of lightning immunes, but whatever. Here in D&D, things are a little different. You're not able to, spam Chain Lightning, for example, because it's a 5th level spell, I think. I can't remember, 4th or 5th level spell. But it still has a lot of the play that the Diablo Sorceress has. And I'm going to show you what I have come up with when thinking about building each of the subclasses out to what they could be. Before I get into that, of course, I am going to be going over the main class, each of the levels, talk about what each level brings to the Sorceress. And we are going to start with level 1 and spellcasting. The spellcasting for this Sorceress is taken directly from the Sorcerer in D&D. Even though Sorceresses are more along the lines of how wizards are, I decided that since the name is fairly similar, the Sorcerer also works with like elemental magics, evocation wizard aside. The Necromancer has the wizard spell list, so I'm going to be focusing on the Sorceress as a D&D, or similar to a D&D sorcerer. Also, at level 1, we get Warmth. At the end of a short rest, you roll 1d4. You regain expended spell slots with a total level equal to or less than the number you rolled. You cannot regain more than 2 spell slots of the same level this way. This is very much like Arcane Recovery from the D&D Wizard, but it's much more random, much more varied, and much more low level. You can't pick up 5th level spell slots, for example. But in exchange, you can get one and like a ton of like one in level 1 and level 2 spell slots every short rest. I don't know if it's like too powerful. Maybe I should do 1d3, but for right now, it's pretty good. I just realized that's really, really good with multi-classing. Oh, that might be a bad idea. I might have to change Warmth. Oh, shoot. Oh, well, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it after I'm done recording. I've got some time to think about this. But anyway, let's move on to second level. At second level, we'll pick up Frozen Armor. Now, this one gives us Mage Armor to cast at will, so you start off with a little bit of defense. That's pretty good, actually. Doesn't count against the number of spells you know. You can cast it without material components. And while you have Mage Armor active, when you're hit with a weapon attack, ranged or melee, as a reaction, you can have the attacker make a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, its speed is reduced by half, and it has disadvantage on the next weapon attack it makes before the end of its next turn. And you can use this ability a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. So Frozen Armor is a great defensive option. This is the 1-point wonder for the Sorceress in Diablo 2, where you put 1 point into it, and then you just let your plus to skills buff it up. It's really, really, really handy. It slows your enemy, it helps you get away from melee enemies, and just helps cut the incoming damage by quite a bit. Also at level 2, you get a subclass. Now, sorcerers get a subclass. D&D sorcerers get a subclass at level 1. This one's a little different. I kind of played off the wizard, like I mentioned, and bumped that subclass from level 1 up to level 2. It just kind of made more sense. I have 4 subclasses available. They are Cold, Elementalist, Fire, and Lightning, and they give you features at 2nd level, 6th level, 14th, and 18th levels. I'll be talking about each one of them after, of course, the main class abilities. At 3rd level, we pick up Sorceress Insight. At 3rd level, your study of the arcane results in occasional flashes of insight. When you roll for an ability check, you can add your intelligence modifier to the roll, minimum of +1. You do this after you roll, but before you know the result. And then you can use this ability a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. Now, clearly, this is not a Diablo 2 ability. This kind of came from the early iterations of the Sorcerer, where I wanted to have uses of class abilities, where I didn't have spellcasting. I just needed a low-level thing that I could do that could feed into your, what was it called? Energy Shield? Yeah, it's right there, Energy Shield, where you'd expend uses of your class abilities to get temporary hit points or whatever. And it just kind of stuck around. It's very, very useful. It's very handy to play around with. And it works with your any ability check, including initiative. So if you really want to, you can add your initiative or add your intelligence to your initiative. You burn a use, of course, but it's still very, very handy. I would like to get rid of it because it's not a Diablo 2 ability, but there's nothing that I really want to or can replace it with. It's a nice utility ability, so I'll probably keep it in through later iterations. Okay, at level 4, and again at 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th levels, you get an ability score increase, bumping your ability scores up by 1 or 2, or getting an optional feat. This is typical. This is boilerplate. There's nothing to see here. Nothing unusual. We're going to jump up to 10th level, where we pick up Shiver Armor. Shiver Armor is an improvement to your Frozen Armor feature. Whenever a creature fails a saving throw against your Frozen Armor feature, it also takes cold damage equal to your intelligence modifier. Also, it has disadvantage on weapon attack rolls until the end of its next turn. This was a change from the previous iteration. If you saw my changelog last week, I talked about this briefly. This was a way to intentionally nerf Frozen Armor, because otherwise it would have been too powerful to grant disadvantage on all weapon attack rolls for very, very low investment. So I bumped it from 2nd level up to 10th level. Also at 10th level, you get Teleport. 10th level, you learn the spell Misty Step. It doesn't count against the number of spells you know. And you can cast it without expending a spell slot 3 times per long rest. And you can also cast it using spell slots of the appropriate level. Fairly handy. Teleport is, just teleport. At 17th level, way up there, we get Energy Shield. 17th level, you gain a protective ward that is fueled by your magics. This ward has a number of hit points equal to your sorceress level, which resets at the end of a long rest. Whenever you take damage, the ward takes the damage instead, and if it's reduced to 0 hit points, you take any remaining damage. As a bonus action, or as a reaction when you take damage, you can expend a spell slot to add a number of hit points to the ward equal to 4 times the level of the expended spell slot. If used as a reaction, the ward takes as much of the triggering damage as possible. Now, Energy Shield is fairly interesting. In Diablo 2, Energy Shield says this percentage of damage that you're taking is taken by your mana instead. It's very, very, very useful and has led to what's called the Immortal Sorceress build, where you put all of your points into Energy Shield, all of its synergies, you max it out, and then you get a bunch of damage reduction on your gear, and you can literally walk into hell and basically take no hit point damage. You max out your mana regeneration and whole bunches of other stuff. But in here, what you're doing is you're starting off with essentially additional hit points equal to your level. This is very similar to the Abjuration Wizard that gets that nice shield. So they pick up, Counterspell or Mage Armor or something like that, and they cast it and create a ward from the magic. In this case, it's just always active. It gets a reset at the end of a long rest. I don't think I said it has a maximum number of hit points, or maximum number of hit points. So yeah, sure, it can go above your sorceress level, but it's certainly not advised, really. And to note, this is an interesting ability for that second paragraph, the bonus action or as a reaction when you take damage. As far as I know, this is unique. I have not found any ability in D&D that allows it to be used as either of two action abilities, if that makes sense. I have, I think it's the Horde Leader. Yeah, Horde Leader, Horde Master for the D&D Druid, or the Diablo Druid that I've made here, that allows you to command your creatures as an action or a bonus action. But it's still very unique. Also at 17th level, you get Masterful Insight. Your Sorceress Insight becomes a little bit more powerful, and you can apply it to attack rolls and saving throws in addition to ability checks. So this is very defensive, very offensive. You're just, when you need it, you get that burst of, kind of push you over the edge to achieve your goals or to keep you safe. And then at 20th level, we get Elemental Mastery. You overcharge either cold or fire or lightning. You get to pick one. Cold damage ignores resistance and deals an additional 2d4 damage if the creature doesn't have resistance or immunity to cold. You add your intelligence modifier to the damage you deal, or anytime you deal damage or lightning damage to a creature, it takes an additional 1d12 lightning damage, and it can only take this damage once per turn. The balance may be off, but this is something I'm working on. But this is your capstone ability. This is showing that you are, the master of elements. Now, this does mean that you can take an elemental mastery that is off the element that your subclass is, but also, that's entirely on you. And speaking of subclasses, let's jump into the proper Let's Build section. Before we get into all of the subclasses proper, I'm going to be going over the ground rules that I have made for these Let's Build videos. I'm going to be using Variant Human and Standard Array. This is just a way to get kind of this baseline across all of the builds, standardizing everything so that it's, standard. I'm not going to be doing any multi-classing because I want to take these builds out to level 20 to show off the class itself. And then I'm not going to be including any gear from backgrounds, upgrades, gear upgrades, or spells from leveling, or any languages. This is to help cut down on time because most of the time they don't really matter. I'll bring them up if there's like a choice. Like you get, like a trinket from the archaeologist background, something like that. Or if the gear upgrade is important, like for the smiter, when you're optimizing it, the smiter paladin, when you're optimizing it, you have to have your plate mail. So let's now properly jump into the cold sorceress. We're going to be dumping our strength. We're going to start with an 8 in strength. You're not a frontline fighter. You don't really need it. But you do need a little bit of defense, which is why we have a 14 in dexterity and a 13 in constitution, 15 intelligence, because that is our main stat, a 10 in wisdom, and a 12 in charisma. The wisdom and charisma can always go back and forth, and I flip-flop them as I go through the different subclasses. I think I match them to their backgrounds, just depending on what I wanted to do. For the variant human points, I put them into constitution and intelligence, of course. We're picking up deception and picking up observant. Now, observant is a bit of an unusual feat. This one is built around keeping yourself aware of your surroundings. You get a +1 to wisdom or intelligence, and you can read lips if you understand the language. But the things that come in really handy is a +5 to your passive wisdom perception and passive intelligence investigation scores. Now, this plays very much into the story that I've built around this cold sorceress. They are a house agent for Civis in their background. Now, the house agents are built around the dragon-marked houses for, I think it's Eberron. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have the thing in front of me. But they are, or maybe it's Sword Coast. I can't remember. Anyway, these are houses, they're families that are, part of the story of the world that they're a part of. In this version, the house agents, or the houses, are more like the families in the Sorceress mage clans. And so this person, this sorceress, is an agent of the house, and they have kind of been chosen to go off an adventure for their skills. So this is why they have that 12 in charisma, the deception, because they are good at, subterfuge and tracking things down. As a house agent, they get investigation and persuasion. They get proficiency in calligrapher's tools and a forger's kit. See previous comment about deception. And then for the skills, they get arcana, history, and performance. Like I said, very more pointed towards the charismatic side of things. So yeah, they get a little bit of intelligence skills for arcana and history, a little bit of charisma skills for deception and performance, and persuasion, intelligence again without investigation, and observant bumps that investigation up, and perception as well. For the gear, we're picking up a dagger and an explorer's pack. You are, kind of been sent out on some kind of mission. So a dagger, a little bit of dagger for a little bit of defense, explorer's pack because you're going to be traveling. And then, of course, you're going to be picking up an arcane focus for your spells. At level 2, we're going to be picking up Ice Bolt and Freezing Enchantment from our Cold Sorceress subclass. Ice Bolt is pretty good. It's a 1d6 at a 60-foot range, and it grants disadvantage on the next weapon attack the creature makes before the start of your next turn. This is basically Frostbite, I think, but as an attack roll rather than a saving throw. But wait, there's more! Freezing Enchantment says anytime you deal cold damage, the creature that you hit, or that you dealt the damage to, its speed is reduced by 15 feet. And yeah, that's really, really good. This allows you to kind of to back up and attack from long range. You can kite better. I don't know if it's really that good or not, but here it is. Balance is going to be always going to be a question here. At level 4, we're going to be picking up that ability score increase and grabbing the Skill Expert feat. This one helps us round off the intelligence that was a 17 due to Observant at level 1, putting that point into intelligence. And we are going to be picking up proficiency in perception and expertise in investigation. You are, like I said, sent out to investigate something. We're not entirely sure what it is, but, something. This way, your investigation is very, very good. There's no real reason other than story for why this is the way that it is, but I like the story. It tells something about this character. At level 6, we're going to be picking up another subclass ability, Frost Nova. At 6th level, you can flash freeze the air around you and blast it outward in all directions. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you makes a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, a creature takes 1d6 cold damage. Now, this is not limited to like once per short rest or something like that. It is just a 1d6 cold damage in a 30-foot radius, and you can do this at will. It doesn't scale or anything, it's just 1d6. But keep in mind that your freezing enchantment does play off of this. Anytime you deal cold damage to a creature, its speed is reduced by 15 feet. So you're able to run into a pack of enemies, freeze the area, slow them down, and then help your friends get out of there. Is it good? I don't know. Is it useful? Probably. Is it fun? Almost certainly. At level 8, we're going to be bumping up our intelligence to 20, get that nice round +5 to all of our modifiers. And then at level 12, we're going to be taking resilient constitution. You're going to be focusing on casting spells. You're going to be in the middle of combat, like I said, with the Frost Nova. I mean, you're level 12 now, so you don't always have to do that, but it is something that you can do should you wish. Also, the reason why I'm picking up Resilient Constitution is because, well, you have frozen armor, and frozen armor is very useful. So instead of getting something like Mage or a Warcaster, picking up Resilient Constitution means that when you get hit, you're more likely to make the save, but you also are capable of lashing out and dealing that damage from your 10th level ability and reducing that incoming damage from their weapon attacks. So, focusing on maintaining concentration rather than avoiding getting hit, kind of thing. Does that make sense? Cool. 14th level, we're going to get Glacial Spike. This one is actually pretty fun. Whenever you hit a creature with a ranged spell attack that deals cold damage, that creature and each creature of your choice within 5 feet of it make a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, a creature has its speed reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn. If a creature's speed becomes 0 this way, it is incapacitated until the start of your next turn, and then creatures immune to cold automatically succeed the saving throw. No surprise there. So the way that this is supposed to work is that you're going to be using Ice Bolt or, Chaos Bolt, I think also deals cold damage. That's an attack roll. And you're going to hit the creature, you're going to deal cold damage, you're going to trigger your freezing enchantment, you're going to trigger your Glacial Spike. Glacial Spike is going to lock down the one creature that you hit, and then... Well, okay, I'm rereading these, and maybe Freezing Enchantment and Glacial Spike might not work the way that I want it to. I will re-examine them. I will re-examine them and bring it back to speed on a later changelog. Anyway, the intention is that you hit a creature, the main creature gets locked down because they generally have 30 feet of movement, so 15 feet from getting hit with Freezing Enchantment, and then another 15 feet by Glacial Spike, and then everything around it becomes 15 feet slower due to Glacial Spike. Kind of hits the creature and explodes around it. At level 16, we're getting another ability score increase, and this time we are playing into that House Agent role. We are picking up Aberrant Dragonmark. Now, I love Aberrant Dragonmark. It is one of my favorite abilities or feats, because you're able to cast your spell using your Constitution. I used this in a campaign years ago when I played Kith, my Kithrin, who was this curious little furry hobbit-like creature. Think like a hobbit, but with like animal ears. Very curious, and I ended up getting Aberrant Dragonmark and casting Ice Knife, I think, with my Constitution. It was great. Now, Aberrant Dragonmark grants you spells from the Sorcerer spell list. I have marked here that it is any and any. The reason for that is because the Sorceress also uses the Sorcerer spell list, so you can just mix and match whatever you like. There's no real reason to lock yourself down here, because you can just pick the cantrips and the first level spells that you want. But this is very much a play into that House Agent, where you are earning your mark, perhaps earning your place in the sorceress house, and something's happened, or maybe there was an issue with some magical thing, and your mark of the house or something went awry, or you got branded improperly or something, and it ended up being, well, aberrant. Let's move on. So at 18th level, we're going to be picking up Blizzard. Blizzard is very, very nice. At 18th level, you learn the spell Ice Storm. It doesn't count against the number of spells you know, and when you cast it using this ability, you choose which creatures must make the saving throw. And then you get it twice per long rest, and you can cast it using the appropriate spell slots of the appropriate level. So Ice Storm is a great area of effect. It drops a cylinder, drops a cylinder on the battlefield, deals a bunch of damage, creates rough terrain, and just causes all sorts of problems. It's pretty good, and there's not really much else to say about it. I like the fact that you get this twice per long rest. Even though it's 18th level, you should be a lot more powerful. Ice Storm is still pretty darn good. So using it for when you need it is important, but you also have a ton of other abilities that can help you even in the middle of combat, even at 18th level. At 19th level, we're going to be bumping our Constitution up to 18. Again, a couple more hit points and a couple more... another point towards keeping our concentration on certain spells. Oh, something I forgot to mention. Aberrant Dragon Mark gives a +1 to Constitution to offset that Resilient Constitution at level 12. So that's why we have an 18 on our Constitution. And then, of course, at level 20, we're getting the Elemental Mastery. We are picking cold. We are cutting through the resistances of cold creatures and dealing additional 2d4 damage if the creature doesn't have resistance to cold. So that is the Cold Sorceress. This is a lot of fun, I think. Kind of playing into that, the Sorceress mage clans, playing into this idea that you're sent on a mission to go investigate something. You're chosen as an emissary to go look and find stuff. It's, I think, really flavorful. Now, granted, this could have been done on any of the subclasses, but cold just kind of felt right to me. Now, as a subclass as a whole, maybe there's some unbalanced things here. Frost Nova at will in combination with Freezing Enchantment. For me, I've noticed that most of the time people get into position and rarely move. Or if not necessarily rarely move, but they don't move much. Yeah, they don't tend to move much. So cutting speed by 15 doesn't really make a difference all that much. But now, granted, you're getting 1d6 in a 30-foot area. You can choose which creatures make the saving throw, and it's at level 6, so it might be more useful. I mean, potentially, if you're playing with, like, minion rules, you walk in, Frost Nova, all the minions die. Like, that's a problem. So, meh. Now, granted, your DM could just say, well, they have 2 hit points instead of 1, so, meh. But overall, I'd love to play a Cold Sorceress just to see how everything plays out. All right, let's jump into the Elementalist. So the Elementalist Sorceress is intended to be the jack of all trades. They don't focus on cold or fire or lightning. They borrow skills from all of them. Essentially what I've done here is I built the cold, the fire, and the lightning sorceress and then said, hey, I've got this group of abilities that's not doing anything. Let's mush them together and see if I can make something out of this. And I think that I did. I think that I made something pretty darn interesting. So we're going to start off with an 8 in strength, 14 dexterity, 13 constitution, 15 intelligence, 12 wisdom, 10 charisma. The only thing that changed from the cold sorceress is swapping the wisdom and charisma. For the variant humor, we're going to put points into constitution and intelligence. We're going to pick up nature as our skill proficiency, kind of focusing in on that, like, well, natural side of things. And then we're going to be picking up the telekinetic feat, putting our point into intelligence. I like the telekinetic feat. Telekinetic gives you an invisible mage hand that you don't require components, verbal or somatic or material, in order to cast this mage hand. It is so nice. And then if you already have the spell mage hand, it increases the range by 30 feet. So useful. You have a 60-foot mage hand. And then, of course, you can spend a bonus action to telekinetically shove somebody. They can fail the save, and you can push them towards you or away from you. That is going to come into play later. For the background, we're going to be picking up Sage, which gives us Arcana and History. And this is just kind of somebody who is studying nature. That's pretty much it. For our skills, we're picking up Insight, Medicine, and Religion, kind of tying into that Sage background where you are not quite a hermit, just kind of studying something important. For the gear, we're picking up a quarterstaff instead of a dagger, and Scholar's Pack instead of an Explorer's Pack. You are walking around, you are studying nature, and so you're going to be, needing a quarterstaff and a Scholar's Pack. Fun fact, the Sorceress has either quarterstaff or dagger, or a Scholar's Pack or Explorer's Pack, which means there's 4 different kinds, or 4 different options that someone could take, and I managed to get each of those options on a different subclass. So, fun fact. All right, let's jump into the second level, where we'll pick up Elemental Enchantment. When you take the subclass at second level, your elemental cantrips become harder to avoid whenever you cast a cantrip that deals cold, fire, or lightning damage, and you either miss a creature with the attack roll or a creature succeeds the cantrip's saving throw. It takes half that damage rounded down, but suffers no additional effects. This is blatantly ripped off from the Evocation Wizard's potent cantrip. I mean, blatantly ripped off, but instead of being any cantrip, it is now just cold, fire, or lightning. This ability came about because I needed something that the Elementalist could have at second level. Something that was kind of utility, something that was elemental flavored, and the only thing I could come up with was, like I said, the Evocation Wizard's potent cantrip. Now, I think it's actually pretty good, because you're going to be using cantrips for quite some time, and so being able to get even half damage on a success, or on a successful save, or on a miss, is just going to be it's just good. All right, at level 4, we're going to be getting Telepathic and putting that point into Intelligence to round up our 17 to an 18. Telepathic is very nice. You're able to mentally communicate with other creatures in language that you understand, which kind of suggests that you should be picking up other languages, but again, I'm not dealing with languages here. And then once per long rest, you can cast Detect Thoughts. Now, there's no real reason why. I mean, you could pick up any other intelligence boosting feat, but I like the twin nature of telekinetic and telepathic, and also it kind of feeds again into the Elementalist's jack of all trades flavor, where you are just kind of the person who does everything. You're the utility person. At level 6, we're picking up the subclass feature of telekinesis, not telekinetic. It is telekinesis. But, listen. Okay, when you reach 6th level, you learn the cantrip Mage Hand and can cast it without components. It doesn't count against the number of cantrips. Yeah. It's invisible unless you choose to make the hand visible. Cool. As a bonus action, you can attempt to shove one creature or object you can see within 30 feet of you. If the target is a creature, it makes a strength saving throw against your spell save DC. On a fail, you push it 5 feet away from you, and you may deal 1d4 lightning damage to it. If the target is an object that is larger or smaller, is not being worn or carried, and is not fastened down, it moves up to 5 feet away from you. So, the reason why I picked up Telekinetic at level 1 and Telekinesis at 6th level, even though there's a ton of overlap, it's just good! So, there's a couple differences between Telekinesis and Telekinetic. Telekinetic can... they both give you Mage Hand. They both turn the hand invisible, but because they stack, you now have a 60-foot Mage Hand. Now, Telekinetic, the feat, can push or pull someone. You can't target objects like Telekinesis can. You can't deal damage like Telekinesis can, but you can pull someone. Telekinesis can push someone, but it can also deal damage, and it can target objects. And that together is just really, really good. If you need to get your ally away from you, you need to retreat, and their turn's coming up and they're at low hit points, you can use Telekinetic to pull them towards you. The creature can fail that saving throw. And it's intended here that the creature can also fail the saving throw, and this is why you may deal 1d4 lightning damage to it. But it helps get people around the battlefield without triggering attacks of opportunity. So there is a significant amount of overlap, but there's enough that is different that just makes them both useful to have at the same time. At level 8, nothing unusual, bumping that intelligence up to 20. And then at level 12, we're going to be getting Gift of the Chromatic Dragon. Now, this one really wasn't like... Okay. Part of the reason why I did this is because it is the miniature version of the level 14 ability Enchant. You can touch a simple or martial weapon and infuse it with Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Poison. Deals an additional 1d4 damage. It's a bonus action, and you can only use it once per long rest. But it also gives you essentially proficiency times per long rest, reactive resistance to Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Poison. This feeds into the Elementalist nature of the subclass. You're essentially picking up Absorb Elements. Now, you don't get the 1d6 damage on your next melee attack, but it's still very, very useful. Now, this does fight for your reaction with your frozen armor, but I think it's separate enough that it should be fine. Well, I brought it up, so let's talk about it. Enchant at 14th level. You get the spell Enchant. It doesn't count against the number of spells you know, yada, yada, yada. When you cast it, using this ability, the duration becomes 10 minutes. Now, Enchant is an ability, or is a spell that says your weapon becomes a +1 weapon and deals, not +1 weapon. It gets +1 to its attack rolls and 1d4 to its damage rolls. And the ability, or the extra damage, is fire. It's very similar to Elemental Weapon, very similar to Enchanted Weapon, I think. I can't remember what the name is called. But it was different enough that I was just like, I'm just going to make it a new spell. This is a party play thing. This is where you walk around and you go, your weapon is now, more fire, and this one is now more fire. You touch your ranger's bow, you touch your barbarian's great axe, you touch your rogue's dagger, I guess. I mean, the +1's going to help, yeah. But this is another reason why the Elementalist is such a good party player, is because they're able to help everybody. Mostly martial classes, they don't do as well in a, you have a cleric and a wizard and a sorcerer and a sorceress. Unless you're playing a blade singer, there's not much you're going to be doing with Enchant. But it is still very much a fun and useful thing to have. I mean, at the very least, oh no, we're backed into a corner. Cast Enchant on my dagger. Stab. There's that too, as a last resort if you really need to. But it's much better with your martials. At level 16, we are going to be bumping up the Constitution from 14 to 16. More hit points, more likely to save on your Constitution saving throws. Again, you're not going to be bumping up your Dexterity because you kind of want to get hit. I mean, you don't want to get hit, but you kind of want to get hit so that you can use your Frozen Armor feature. Deal a little bit of cold damage and prevent that attack from coming in. At level 18, we're going to be picking up Frozen Orb. Now, I really, really like this ability. You learn the spell Freezing Sphere. I think it's Otilux Freezing Sphere is the proper name, but we're using basic rules here. Counts as a sorcerer's spell, doesn't count against the number of yada, 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 all that good stuff. You get it once per long rest, and can cast it using spell slots of the appropriate level. Freezing Sphere is freaking nuts. This is Cold Fireball on steroids. It is a 300-foot range, and it is I think it's a 40-foot sphere of cold. It is massive. It freezes water. It traps people. It's just, you can summon it and then put it onto a little bead that you can throw or you can plant, and you just let it sit and wait and then explode later. It's just, so much fun. Now, Frozen Orb as a spell in Diablo 2 is very different from that. Freezing Sphere was the closest that I could get, because Frozen Orb itself is a ball of ice that you launch out, and it is a line spell that explodes, similar to the Druid's Molten Boulder, for example, where it flies out and then goes boom. But instead of knocking people back, it spits out a bunch of shards of ice that deal damage. It's a great area denial spell. It's so good. But getting that as a mechanic into D&D is such a pain, because you've got to make a line that's like 20 feet wide and 100 feet long or something like that, and then it just becomes overpowered unless you power it down, unless you do this or unless you do that. So I just said Freezing Sphere, gonna get rid of it, or rid of the issues of trying to come up with something, because it's good enough TM. But you are at 18th level. You should be able to chuck this bead of ice into into an area and just walk away, and everything's coated in this sharp ice. I mean, now imagine, hypothetically, you're fighting a dragon, and you go, cool, Frozen Orb, Freezing Sphere, here's a little bead, tunk, and you toss it down the guy's throat. Now, if I was the DM, and someone did that, that's an automatic fail, and depending on the type of dragon, might end up with vulnerability to the damage. Oof. Anyway, let's move on. For level 19, we're going to be bumping up our Constitution, see level 16, and then for the level 20, we're going to be picking up Elemental Mastery for Lightning. Now, this one is interesting, but keep in mind that Telekinesis deals lightning damage. So this weaponizes our bonus action. It goes from 1d4 to 1d4 plus 1d12. Now, maybe you want to focus on some other element. You've liked your cold spells, you like your fire spells, but being able to deal between 2 and 16 damage, I don't know what the curve on all of that looks like, but dealing between 2 and 16 damage as a bonus action is very, very nice. And pushing people around the battlefield, beautiful. So that's why I've picked Lightning for that Elemental Mastery. And we are done. The Elementalist is a lot of fun. I like the utility side of things. I love pushing people around the battlefield. I love telekinetic as a feat. I love telepathic as a feat. And I love the utility side of this. It's a good party player. It's a support player. And it works very, very well. Your elemental enchantment allows you to keep up with some of the damage dealing things, damage dealers in your party. Telekinesis allows you to kind of help control the battlefield a little bit. Enchant buffs your party members. Frozen Orb is finally like the, okay, stand back. I've got this. Now, you've got to be very, very, very careful about where you throw that bead, but if you can get it done right, you can get it done really, really right. But let's thaw out a bit and drop into the Fire Sorceress. This one is the well, the damage dealer. This is the Fire Sorceress. Very much like the previous two subclasses, we have an 8 in Strength, 14 Dexterity, 13 Constitution, 15 Intelligence, 12 Wisdom, and 10 Charisma. For the variant human, we're going to be putting points into Constitution and Intelligence. We're going to be picking up Religion. This kind of plays into its background a little bit. And for the feat, we're going to be picking up Eldritch Adept. Now, Eldritch Adept is unique. This one allows you to pick up an Eldritch Invocation from the Warlock class. Now, we're not a Warlock, so we're not able to pick up anything that has prerequisites. But there are some pretty good ones that are not prerequisitable. You can pick them up. In this case, I've picked up Eyes of the Rune Keeper. There's no real particular reason, more just kind of flavor, because I wanted to do something a little different. But the nice thing about this is that as you level up, you can swap out which invocation you have. So the background plays into all of this. You are an Inheritor. Inheritor gives us Survival, Arcana, and a proficiency with a musical instrument, which I picked up as the Viol. But the reason why I went with this Eldritch Adept for the Inheritor Fire Sorceress is that this Inheritor received an object that is possessed by a demon. This is where the Eldritch Adept comes from. This is where the proficiency with Religion comes from. They were handed this this relic that has a demon trapped inside. It could be a pair of eyeglasses. It could be a ring. It could be a necklace. It could be anything. Very flavorful. Or customize it as you wish for whatever flavor. But this demon, when called upon, gives you benefits. It gives you the ability to read all the languages, or potentially see in the dark, or whatever you want. This is also the reason why I chose this for the Fire Sorceress, because fire, demons, yada yada, extrapolate as you will. Keep in mind that the sorceresses were the first people to summon demons from hell. They thought they were summoning spirits, but instead they were summoning actual demons. So this is kind of the idea is this might be a relic that was passed down from the original Viserai who summoned the demons. And this ended up, this relic being passed down from mother to daughter or whatever, or perhaps mentor to mentor or mentor to mentee, and ending up in the hands of this character. For our skills, we're picking up Insight, Medicine, and Performance. No real reason behind any of those, just because I figured that they would be fun. For the gear, we're picking up a Quarterstaff, an Explorer's Pack, and an Arcane Focus. You are going out and wandering the world, maybe as a way to break the curse on whatever you've inherited, to free the demon, or maybe it's the wards and bindings on this are starting to break loose, and so you have to get out. For level 2, we are going to be getting our subclass, and we are getting Firebolt, which gives us the Firebolt cantrip, and Burning Enchantment. Whenever you deal fire damage, you can treat any 1 on the die as a 2. This is very handy for spells that deal multiple damage dice. Things like Fireball, for example, dealing 8d6. Suddenly your d6 is now, instead of 1 to 6, it's 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't remember if it was, or what's the exact rate of damage increase, but it's not a lot on a d6, but it's still like some. Level 4, we're going to be boring and bump our intelligence up to 18. And level 6, we are picking up Inferno. You get the spell Inferno. It doesn't count against the number of spells, yada, yada, yada. And you can cast it twice per long rest. This is a concentration spell, and it's just a line of fire. And next turn, you can turn around and line of fire. This went through a ton of iteration, trying to figure out how I wanted to build it. And eventually, I think I just went with the Sunbeam build, where it's just line of fire, next turn, line of fire, next turn, line of fire. So it allows you to reposition at the very least. At level 8, we're going to be bumping up our intelligence to 20, and at level 12, we are going to make a very strange decision and pick up Elemental Adept as a feat, choosing Fire. Now, the Burning Enchantment already covers half of what Elemental Adept does, but the reason why I'm picking up Elemental Adept is because in Diablo, you're going to be facing a lot of demons, and a lot of the demons have resistance or immunity. Not that it makes a difference with immunity, but resistance to fire. And in this case, your spells ignore resistance to fire. Literally fighting fire with fire. So, yeah, that's the entire reason for why this is picked up. Now, normally, again, I try to avoid overlap in abilities, but when your entire damage repertoire is focused on one element, you need to be able to get that element to deal the damage that it's supposed to be dealing. Speaking of dealing damage, we're going to be going over to the 14th level where we get Wall of Fire. Doesn't count against the number of spells, yada yada yada. You can cast it once per long rest without expending a spell slot. Wall of Fire is just Firewall. It's not the exact same, but it's, again, similar enough. It is a line of fire or a circle of fire, which gives it a little bit of utility, and you can choose inside, outside, forward, backward, and just burn everything on that side. Very handy when you drop it in front of a horde of minions and they run through and immediately incinerate. For level 16, we are picking up Resilient Constitution. Firewall does not have the typical Firewall or Inferno don't have the typical can't break your concentration on it. So having that ability to maintain your concentration on it is very, very useful. Level 18, we're going to be picking up Hydra. Hydra is the ability to drop down a burning Hydra onto the ground and deal 2 ranged spell attacks at 120 feet, dealing 1d10 fire damage on a hit. It's essentially additional fire bolts as a bonus action, I might point out. But it's kind of sad because Hydra, it's not a spell, which means your Elemental Adept doesn't give the benefits. It does count for your Burning Enchantment, because Burning Enchantment counts ability damage whenever you're dealing fire damage. But you don't ignore resistance. Now, I didn't want to make it a spell for some reason, but I think that's okay. I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I might have to make it a spell. The wizard in Diablo 3 gets Hydra, so maybe I have to make it a spell so that there's a better crossover. I don't know. But it's still very, very useful, being able to weaponize your bonus action and deal essentially a cantrip as a bonus action. And then you can use this ability twice per long rest. Probably should do 3 times, but I think twice is fine. Level 19, we're going to be picking up Durable, which gives a +1 to the Constitution, so that our Constitution becomes 16. And then Durable gives us the ability to regenerate hit points at a more, improved rate for when we expend them during a short rest or something. I'm not entirely sure why I took this. I think I got tired of picking like Chef or something. And so Durable to round out that Constitution is much nicer to have. You know, you're going to be targeted because you have your Firewall, because you have your Inferno, and you want to have that Constitution because you're getting hit. You're going to be losing hit points, recover hit points at a better rate. At level 20, we're picking up Fire for Elemental Mastery. You know, surprise, surprise there. Now, this does make Hydra much better because it is 2 ranged spell attacks, and you're going to be adding your intelligence modifier to each instance of damage. So that makes it really, really, really nice. And that is the Fire Sorceress. Now, I've not played a pure Fire Sorceress, but I have played in Diablo, but I have played a Hydra Orb Sorceress. It's Frozen Orb and Hydra, and it is a ton of fun. You walk into a room, slam down 4 or 5 hydras. I think the maximum is 6 actually, and then you just fill the air with little ice bolts flinging everywhere with your frozen orb. It's a lot of fun. This one it's my what is it? It's the my magic find. I've got a Harlequin crest with it's not Lemrune. I think it's Lemrune, 25% magic find. No, Lem is gold find. I can't remember what it is, but it's the 25% magic find. And I got very, very sad when I found out that you can just put a perfect topaz in there for 24% magic find rather than spending a high rune. Anyway, but yeah, the Fire Sorceress I think is pretty fun. It's very much focused on just dealing fire damage. There's nothing like special about it in terms of like interaction or social interaction or exploration, but I think occasionally that's fine. All right, let's get to the last subclass for tonight, and that is the Lightning Sorceress. I mentioned this at the very beginning, but I love the Lightning Sorceress in Diablo 2. Being able to walk into a room and just chain lightning the crap out of everything. Again, lightning immunes in Act 3 are the worst. But I guess that's why you have, what is it, Crack of the Heavens, I think? I think it's Crack of the Heavens that drops their resistances to 75%. I'm not entirely sure. Or it breaks their immunity. So you're dealing some amount of damage. Anyway, yeah, like the other sorceresses, we have an 8 strength, 14 dexterity, 13 constitution, 15 intelligence, a 10 wisdom, and a 12 charisma. Variant human puts points into constitution and intelligence. And we are going to be picking up deception and the tough feat. I agonized over what feat would fit best, and I just kind of gave up and picked tough. You're a sorceress, you have a d6 hit die. Having additional hit points is just going to be good. For the background, we're picking up Noble, C, Deception, and we are picking up History and Persuasion and the Dragon Chess set for our gaming set proficiency. For the skills, we're picking up Arcana, Insight, and Performance, focusing a little bit on that Charisma, that Deception, Persuasion, and Performance, because you are, again, a noble. You are not necessarily like the heir to a house, but perhaps more of the child of a prestigious like clan or something in the sorceress hierarchy. For the gear, we're picking up a dagger and a scholar's pack and an arcane focus, standard kit for the sorceress. And at level 2, we are picking up Charged Bolt and Shocking Enchantment. Charged Bolt says you get the cantrip of Charged Bolt, 1d4 in an area, in a 15-foot cone. Fairly simple. Dexterity save. Shocking Enchantment says once per turn when you deal lightning damage, you can roll the damage dice an additional time and use either total. This is interesting. Part of the reason that this ability exists is because in Diablo 2, there is a massive swing between the high end and the low end. You can deal literally 1 damage, or you can deal 3,000 damage, because that's the elemental damage gimmick. Fire has a higher floor but a lower ceiling than lightning. Lightning has a very low floor and a very high ceiling. And then cold has a low floor and a low ceiling, but it also, slows or freezes, a lot of crowd control. So Shocking Enchantment in this case allows you to manipulate your damage dice a little bit better. Kind of tweak it so that it's just that little bit more. At level 4, we're going the boring route and bumping our intelligence up to 18. At level 6, we're going to be picking up Nova, which is very much similar to Frost Nova, but in this case, instead of dealing Constitution saving throw and 1d6 cold damage, you're dealing a Dexterity saving throw and 1d10 lightning damage. Part of the reason why I wanted that 1d10, honestly, actually, now that I think about that, I probably should take that down to a 1d8. because you're re-rolling with your shocking enchantment. Okay, well, tweaks. All of this is subject to change anyway. But you're able to run in and deal some damage in an area just at will. Now, again, you're going to be very tough. But, if you can keep yourself safe, Nova is a great ability, especially against hordes of creatures. You hit 3 or 4 times, or 3 or 4 creatures, you're dealing some serious damage. At level 8, we're going to be bumping up our intelligence to 20. Level 12, we're going to be bumping up our constitution to 16. And at level 14, we're going to be picking up Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning is Chain Lightning. You learn the spell Chain Lightning, and you can cast it without expending a spell slot once per long rest. Chain Lightning is a very, very good spell. I think when I originally had this, it downcasted the spell, something that Wizards was experimenting with, that you're able to cast high-level spells at a lower level, but they have a nerfed ability. And then when I rewrote some things, I bumped Chain Lightning up, and now you're capable of casting it. There's not really much to say here. It's just Chain Lightning. You got a spell, you deal damage. At level 16, we're going to be bumping up that Constitution up to 18. And then at level 18, we get Thunderstorm. This is, Thunderstorm. You learn the spell Thunderstorm. It doesn't count against the number of spells. When you cast it using this ability, damage can't break your concentration on it, and you cast it at a level equal to your intelligence modifier, a minimum of 3rd level. So you're going to be casting it at this point at 5th level. I really like this spell. In Diablo 2, I really, 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 really wanted to get a Thunderstorm Lightning Sorceress. You dump all your points into Thunderstorm, all your points into Static Field, which is its synergy, all your points into Lightning Mastery. It's just, you walk around and the screen just dies. Right? Sadly, no. At lower levels, maybe, but when you get high enough level, it just doesn't do the damage. Thunderstorm in Diablo 2 is just, as you walk around, lightning will strike. It always hits a creature, but it's a random creature. But it's just passive damage. It lasts for a long time. And it strikes a random creature and deals some lightning damage. As you put points into it, the interval between lightning strikes shortens and shortens and shortens and shortens and shortens. Unfortunately, it's not... When you get high enough level, it just doesn't deal the damage that you need it to. And it doesn't deal it at any decent frequency. So, unfortunately, there is no Diablo 2 Lightning Thunderstorm Sorceress. However, in here, you summon a thundercloud directly above you within range. It forms a 10-foot tall, 30-foot radius cylinder centered on you, which follows you as you move. When you summon it, and at the start of each of your turns for the duration, you may choose a creature under the cloud to make a dexterity saving throw. On fail, takes 1d10 damage, or half as much damage on a success. And then at higher levels, you add an additional 1d10. So by this time, you're casting it at 5th level. You are getting 3d10 passive damage for 10 minutes as everything around you dies. And keep in mind, you can reroll the damage dice. Now that's pretty darn good. That's, let's see, 5.5 on average per d10, 15, 16.5 damage on average, just passive damage for 10 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty darn good. Now, granted, you're 18th level, yada, 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 but still. And then you can cast this spell twice per long rest. So you can have it up for about 20 minutes over the adventuring day. At level 19, we're going to be bumping up our constitution to 20. And speaking of 20s, for level 20, we're going to be getting lightning for our elemental mastery. No surprise there. And that's the lightning sorceress. So what'd you think? Still a lot of just damage upon damage upon damage. Various ways to inflict, shocking things upon your enemies. But I think it does it in such a unique style. each one of these is very different. Charged Bolt, it's 1d4 and 15-foot cone. Nova is 1d10 and a 30-foot radius. Chain Lightning is chain lightning. It bounces among a bunch of different creatures. And then Thunderstorm is randomly called down on different creatures. And so it's all lightning damage, but it inflicts it in different and interesting ways. Again, ultimately, as much as I want to hype this thing up, it's just lightning damage. I am very much looking forward to bringing in the Diablo 4 Sorceress, because you get a ton of different abilities. You get passives, you get new abilities, and I can start mixing those into each of the subclasses and maybe the main class. Maybe create more subclasses and get some more utility out of everything that I have here. But I really want to like this. I really want to like the Sorceress. It's fun, but it's all combat focused. Other than Sorceress Insight and any feats you may choose, it's all just damage and damage reduction and damage and more damage. I mean, that's not necessarily bad, because you can customize it because you are a full spellcaster. So that's good. But every subclass just feels like an evocation wizard. It just feels like a ton of damage, that you're just putting more damage onto the battlefield. And granted, I played an evocation wizard. Kind of. He was. If you heard about him in the previous video, that's great. His name was Brad. He was a drunkard, and his iconic spells were Shocking Grasp, which he delivered via punching somebody, Tavern Brawler level 1, and Animate Dead. And he didn't take Fireball until 17th level because he was running out of spells he wanted to use. I did not play this guy the way that most people would play characters in Evocation Wizard. But honestly, one of my favorite characters that I've ever played. He actually started out as a transmutation wizard in Pathfinder. Because they got, I think in Pathfinder 1, you could get a toad, which gives you additional hit points as a familiar. But transmutation wizards could augment their physical capabilities. And I was like, so what if I built a wizard, but like a pugilist wizard? And I ended up with Brad. A little bit of homebrew, allowing me to deliver strength-based touch attacks, but still, ton of fun. Anyway, that is the Sorceress. What'd you think? Do you have any suggestions for stuff that I could do, or am I completely off my rocker with what I've done here? Let me know, and I will close everything out here. You can contact me at XenosFan2, that is XENOZFAN2 on Blue Sky and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Blue Sky and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.